Did the president break royal protocol? Has the king scuppered Prince Andrew's holiday plans? And which royal had a white pants moment? We discuss all that and more on another busy show for you. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and here to discuss all the week's stories are the Mail on Sunday's assistant editor Kate Mansey and the paper's diary editor Richard Eden. Welcome to you both. And a reminder that if you don't already, make sure you subscribe to our channel and never miss another episode. Kate Mansey, it's been a while. Coming to you first, US President Joe Biden. Start with that. He arrived alongside with all his helicopters, all his cars. Absolutely ruined my day with road closures. Thanks for that, Mr. President. Yes, he went to see the King, but it wasn't a state occasion.
Well, there's no entourage like a presidential entourage, is
Tell
there?
me
Even
about
the
it.
King doesn't rival that
Yeah.
level of kind of cars and helicopters and things like that. No, it's not a state visit per se, but of course when the president comes over, there's always going to be they've got to drop in on the monarch.
And it was a drop in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Right? It's literally sort of landing at Windsor Castle. So there was some pomp and ceremony, of course, because you can't just accept the president through the back door for a bicky and a cup of tea. So before they sat down for 20 minutes in the green room, in the drawing room at Windsor for a cup of tea, they inspected the troops. There were some Welsh Guards troops there to inspect. And of course the band played both national anthems. So there was a sense of kind of ceremony to it all. And this will be the first formal meeting that the president's had with the King for the new reign. Biden attended the Queen's funeral, of course, and then Jill Biden came on her own for the coronation. There will be a state visit. There's been a conversation about that already. That will take place at some point in the future, but this was more of a kind of formal meeting.
A lot of sniping was enjoyed in the papers, Richard, with the fact that Joe Biden spent more time with the King than he did with our Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, which might show the strength of the so-called soft diplomacy powers of the royals.
Perhaps, yes, and perhaps it's better for the cameras, to be with the backdrop of Windsor and the soldiers.
It is very pretty.
And all of that. I think Joe Biden is the first serving American president to have met two monarchs, actually.
Oh, wow,
but that'd be one for the historians to note. So that's an interesting experience for him. Of course, he wasn't here for the coronation. His wife came, but he wasn't here for that. So it's been a good chance for him to catch up with our new king.
And now, Kate, lots of the media and social online chatter was about how Joe Biden handled the King, literally, and whether or not this was against royal protocol.
Yes, we saw him, didn't we, with the president with his hand on the King's back at one point, and everyone sort of gasped and said, "Oh, this is a breach of royal protocol." But of course, these things change. There isn't a kind of a rule book sitting somewhere at Buckingham Palace that says you can and you can't do this sort of thing.
I honestly thought there was, because being from the colonies, being Australian, I remember the scandal we all learnt about when I was a kid was in the 50s, the Prime Minister, Robert Mansey's, delicately, and I thought chivalrously, putting his hand on the Queen's elbow, and that was just an outrage.
Personally, I think that kind of the hand on the back is a kind of politician's move, isn't it? To be like, I'm in charge here. And I thought it was a bit off. But in terms of royal protocol,
just pally?
Well, I think that's what the palace said, that it was just an example of the warmth between the two. And the palace were very keen to sort of play the whole thing down and say, no, they got on marvellously and it's all very wonderful, and no breach of protocol. And protocol changes, of course. Everything's becoming more informal, especially the King, I think. New reign, things a bit more, they greeted each other with a handshake, and it was all very...
Yeah, but this is the King. I must admit, when I saw those images, I did think, come on, get your hands off our King. Sort of pouring him...
screaming that at the TV.
Sort of pouring him like some, schoolboy teenager at a cinema or something.
Oh, Richard.
I mean, look,
That's a bit much.
Things have changed. He's not the first person to have, touched the monarch. There was quite a lot of interest when Michelle Obama sort of put her arm quite sort of tenderly round Queen Elizabeth, and then the Queen afterwards had made it clear that she didn't mind. But of course she would say that, wouldn't she? And the point is, you should, I think, you should respect the monarch, and in the same way as if we went to meet the Emperor of Japan, we'd probably check protocol before. How do you behave when you meet, head of state of another country? And I thought, he's not just any other bloke, is he? He is our king. So I thought, a bit disrespectful.
Oh my goodness, do you agree with that?
Like I said, it did seem a bit of a power play, but I don't think it was meant as such. I don't think Biden was saying, "Hi, I'm the boss here." I think it was perhaps I think it genuinely was a kind of warm, a sign of the warmth between the two of them. It didn't strike me as.
I mean, he is famously tactile, I think, Joe Biden, isn't he? There were people telling me about him. He'd always get very close to people. With others, perhaps he's even more tactile.
Let's move on. Speaking of things not so warm and fuzzy, Richard, it used to be customary that the Yorks would get a nice holiday in Scotland every summer, but apparently this looks a bit in doubt this year.
Yeah, well, this is because Balmoral, the Queen was very, she stuck to a real sort of fixed routine. It was the last weekend of July. Her Majesty would move to Balmoral, the court would move there, and it would always be Andrew and his family. In recent years, it would often be his ex-wife, Sarah, would join them. They'd be there right at the start for their summer holiday, and then Andrew and family would leave before anyone else arrived. And the Queen would use that Balmoral holiday to entertain all different members of her family. But what King Charles has decided is to make more use of Balmoral. It's a private estate. He wants to bring more money in. So the time when there's most demand, of course, is in summer holidays in August. So he's kept it open for another 2 weeks, bring in more revenue, but unfortunately it does mean no summer holiday for Andrew.
Oh no, what will he do?
Well, look, perhaps there'll be an invitation for him to come later in the summer, but we wait with interest.
I will lose sleep, won't you?
I'm sure.
Worrying about the royals' posh holiday. I mean, we can't expect the king, can we, Kate, to have the same family holidays as his mother?
No, and actually at Christmas it was much shorter, the time that was spent at Sandringham, than the Queen would have had. Obviously Charles feels very at home up in Scotland, but he stays at Birk Hall rather than Balmoral, and that's more like a kind of home from home rather than a sort of holiday retreat as such. He's got his red squirrels in the garden there that he's all feeds by hand and things like that. I'm sure Andrew will be invited at some point up there, but obviously Fergie's had her breast reconstruction surgery, and she's come through the cancer scare and everything. So I just really hope that she has some fabulous friends in America who'll invite her to some brilliant ranch, or some celebrity showbiz pals who'll take her somewhere fabulous when she's feeling better. Yeah. Andrew, I'm not so bothered about his holiday being scuppered.
So, Richard, it sounds like there's a good chance that the king won't really use Balmoral in the same way, even when he's in Scotland.
Well, we do have a really interesting situation, because the Queen, her home in Scotland was Balmoral, which was, bought by Queen Victoria all those years ago, Prince Albert. But King Charles already has a house. As Kate mentioned, he has Birk Hall on the Balmoral estate. Well, is he going to keep that in addition to Balmoral? There'd been speculation that maybe maybe he would turn Balmoral into a museum.
It'd be a real shame if they don't have those Gillies balls, though, at Balmoral, which the Queen used to have in summer, which is an example, it's a huge ball and you get a lot of the kind of staff and everything invited. So.
But I think it is an awkward situation now where King Charles has kind of accrued so many houses, frankly. So, look, anyway, at least it means he could always stay at Birk Hall, perhaps, and let Andrew and family have Balmoral, but I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Interesting. Well, maybe one of our viewers will be willing to put Andrew and Fergie up for a holiday this summer. Get in touch. Speaking of our viewers, we're just going to turn now to your comments, and we'll start with a little bit more self-congratulations, as we thank all of you who sent us praise after we hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. So Suzanne O'Rourke says she would have thought it would have been far more, and that it's so lovely hearing such a jolly mix of constitutional chit-chat every week. Constitutional chit-chat. I love that. We love having our viewers along for the ride, and remind that if you don't subscribe already, why not? Hit that subscribe button right now. And on the subject of the Duke of Sussex, Madeline Vegas, what a great name. Madeline Vegas says he should be called Harry, not Prince Harry. He lives in the USA now, and titles mean nothing in the USA. Goodness. And finally, we discussed last week whether the Princess of Wales was a steel marshmallow, which was a new phrase on me, or an iron fist in a velvet glove. Well, Parker Brown Nesbitt, another amazing name, has come up with a new one for us. She writes, in the southern US, we call these kind of women steel magnolias. Remember that amazing film?
Yeah.
Maybe we should have a vote to see which one of our viewers think she is. Keep an eye on our community page for that. Back to the panel now. Richard, Kate, what do you think Catherine is, Princess of Wales? Steel magnolia? Or someone else in the comments mentioned the phrase perfumed steamroller.
Wow.
No, I'm not.
I like steel magnolia,
that's
but
borderline rude, I think.
A steamroller,
Yeah.
I like steel magnolia, but I think in Britain anyway, maybe not in the US, it's synonymous with a woman called Fiona Shackleton, who's a very famous divorce lawyer here, who you probably know, and she's very glamorous, but she's whip smart, and she always wins her cases. And actually, she represented Prince Charles, as he was then, in his divorce against Diana. So when I hear steel magnolia, I think of Fiona Shackleton and the Diana-Charles divorce. So I probably wouldn't associate it with Catherine. But in terms of, the essence is there, absolutely, because she's a tough cookie.
Yeah. Now, moving on, Kate, let's talk about Meghan and Harry. We love talking about them on this show. It was the show that set the cat among the pigeons, was their Netflix docuseries, and now it's up for a Hollywood Critics Award. What do you make of that?
Well, lots of people watched that show, didn't they? Everybody watched it and tuned in to see it was this huge kind of TV highlight. I'm not surprised it's nominated for an award. I expect it probably win many awards because it was so popular. But you do wonder, despite all that kind of success on paper, whether it's done them any good in the long run, because for me, I remember that one excruciating scene where they're sitting on the sofa and Meghan recreates the very low curtsy that she gave her fiancé then's grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, and Harry's sitting next to her, sort of looking quite awkward, frankly. And that's the scene that just stays with me. And sometimes there's moments in these programmes that just stay with you, and that's what people become remembered for. And they can win all the awards they like, but has it done their reputation, has it done their standing any good? I think time will tell.
Interesting, isn't it? But surely, Richard, the royal family will just be eye-rolling. It would be a bit awkward if it does win awards, won't it?
Well, look, I'm sure they're the same as me, frankly, that, it doesn't matter if it wins this award or it wins other awards, that, that series was disgraceful. And, sure, they may have got their, 30 pieces of silver from Netflix, but, it damaged relations with the royal family beyond repair. It did so much damage to everything, really, to their reputation, that, yes, it was an interesting programme that everyone watched, but I can't see how it's benefited them in the long term at all.
Well, time will tell. I can't wait to see if it wins that award or not, and it probably will be nominated for others. But, Kate, let's talk now about Prince William. We've talked a lot on this show about his ambitious homeless plans, and now the King has launched a project to help the hungry.
Yes, that's right. So yesterday there was a new project that the King threw his weight behind, which is the Coronation Food Project. The idea is that any kind of unused food can be repurposed to help people suffering from the credit crisis. And I think this is really interesting because it's something that Charles has actually been doing for years and years, quite quietly behind the scenes. So at Dumfries House, his Ayrshire mansion that he's open to the public, he has a fridge and it's like a food bank. And he was doing food banks long before, the recent kind of push where people would leave things they don't need and other people would go and pick them up. And quite subtle and discreet, just a place where you could go and pick up any produce that any farmers, had finished with or didn't need to take to market. So I think it's brilliant that he's doing these sorts of things, and it also ties into his, his interest in sustainability, that great kind of old-fashioned sensibility of not wanting to waste anything and to help others in the process. So it's quite nice, really.
It's interesting, isn't it, Richard? We get a lot of comments when we talk about these issues on the show, people sort of arguing that these aren't political issues, they're social issues, which I understand, but they do risk sort of supposed failings, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, these sort of initiatives are tricky because often, our opposition in this country, Labour Party, will cite statistics such as the number of people using food banks or, when it comes to homelessness, that they will use that against the government. Quite rightly, they're highly political issues. So when the royal family get involved, that can bring controversy. But I think in the same way as with homelessness, Prince William is trying to sort of depoliticise it a bit and say, look, this is something we need to tackle from whatever party you're from. I think King Charles is trying to do that as well, and the government would acknowledge that, some people are struggling as well. They'd be the first to acknowledge that. So, yeah, it is a sensitive line, though, that they have to walk.
William's tried, hasn't he, to meet, he has met people from different sides of the political fence on his homelessness project because he's conscious that it's going to take a kind of pan-political approach to make it work. And I think their view at the Palace is very much that it's not social or political, it's a human problem. And they're going to carry on doing what they can do with the platform that they have. And good luck to them, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, we've got lots to talk about today. And now, Kate, we're going to move on to... It's that time of year when royal correspondents would be going down to Devon and Cornwall to follow Charles and Camilla. But now the Duchy of Cornwall is William's. So that's changed as well, hasn't it?
It is, and as we know from William, he's going to do things his own way. So we had a video released this week about him in Dartmoor in Devon, which is part of the Duchy estate, looking at some initiatives that are going on there. He's had a quick 2-day visit. He's not doing the Cornwall week as such, but then that's another sign that he's doing things differently. That's not to say that he won't spend time there. I mean, we know that he's been to the Scilly Isles, which is part of the Duchy estate as well, with his kids in the past. He's been to Tresco.
Oh, I love Tresco.
I'd love to go. It looks incredible.
Yeah.
And they've stayed in Dolphin House, which is this amazing kind of beachside place, which I think you can... pay to any punter can pay to stay there actually. So
it's actually really
money.
hard to get to go to Tresco. I was very lucky.
Yeah.
Friends of mine were on some long waiting list.
Expensive as well. Yeah. But I think this is a sign that he's not going to go, this is my Cornwall week, I'm going to just get it done now and I'll do this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He's going to go and sort of parachute into different projects and do it his own way, which is another sign of the new Duke of Cornwall doing it differently, the new Prince of Wales.
Entirely fair enough, isn't it? But Richard, he was also seen playing polo at a big society event this week. He's not known for polo in the way that Charles, his father, always has been, but there he was, mallet in hand.
Yeah, it was great to see him back, chuckers away, back on the polo field. We haven't... he used to play polo a lot, and of course he would often play with Harry. I think that he loved it as much as his father, but it has sort of taken a bit of a back seat. So he waits for an occasion like this where it was a big charity tournament, raised a lot of money, and there was his wife, Catherine, to present, give him a kiss and present the prizes. He seemed to get some sort of trophy himself. So that was good to see, and it was a lovely sunny day, so I think it was a good time was had by all.
Have you ever played polo, Richard?
I haven't, but I'm willing to learn.
It's something. It's not of my world. Let's put it. I will never understand it. You?
I just like it as a spectator sport. I remember Nachos Figueiredo, I'm sure I've pronounced his name wrong. But yes, as a spectator sport, I appreciate the let's say the beauty of it, but would not want to have a go myself.
You do have to be a very good horse rider to play.
I mean, possibly none of us are posh enough to be skilled at polo, but Kate, you are heading to Buckingham Palace this afternoon, I believe. That's quite fancy. I am, lucky me. Yes, it's a preview of the summer exhibition. So every summer they open up Buckingham Palace when they have a particular exhibition on. And this time, of course, it's the coronation robes and everything about the coronation. So that will be fantastic. We'll get to see up close everything that we saw in the Abbey or on television during the coronation. So it's such a special year to have all that sort of wonderful stuff displayed in Buckingham Palace. Yes, there's loads of work going on, so they've got scaffolding. If you go down those back corridors, which the public won't see, they've still got lots of work going on, but they've opened up those main rooms so that you can have a look at these fabulous vestments, basically. It's just, when I went to Buckingham Palace, I was fascinated by the loos. Sort of like really old-fashioned with like those long bench seats. Yes, you've got the wooden kind of toilet. Yeah. Big kind of like a piece of wood like this, and then, a hole in the middle. Yeah. Quite strange. trivia for you. We give you all the info on Palace Confidential. We're going to stick with the polo now because it seemed a perfect time to look back at some of our favourite pictures of the royals playing the so-called sport of kings. And I believe I have it on good authority from the Daily Mail's royal editor, that Rebecca English, that those are known as white pants moments. Did you know that?
No.
Pants mean something different here than they do in America, don't
It does. Well, if you did enjoy that and you enjoy our content, please do remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our royal shows like this one. Thanks as always to Kate and Richard and to you for watching. We will see you next time. Bye for now.